Howdy, I'm at work right now, so I'm keeping a little quiet. But I also have nothing to do, and I still have about 6 hours left in my shift. So here's a video about, I was watching a video that was very intriguing, and it has to take place with this person. I can't remember their name because it was a very interesting name. It started with an S. I will link it down below, but they were talking about how, I don't know their pronouns, so I'm just going to assume they, them, how they were non-binary, and what dysphoria and transitioning meant to them and stuff like that. Now, I thought it was very interesting, and it brought up the subject in my mind as to what it means to me, for me being non-binary. What does that mean? And I know there might not be very many people here that are interested in what I have to say, but I think in the future I'll be interested in how I feel about my gender in this present day, because gender fluctuates and it changes, and whether you agree with me with that or not doesn't really matter, because in my own personal experience, my gender has drastically fluctuated. I wouldn't say that it's fluid. So I can't say directly that I would identify as like gender fluid or anything in specific. I'm trying to adjust my camera, I'm sorry. I don't like going for like a specific identity. I identify as non-binary, and that's just it. The pronouns I prefer, which have recently changed from he, him to they, them, are actually the pronouns I prefer now, which is very interesting because I went, I want to say 14 years going by she, her pronouns, and then about 5 years going by he, him pronouns. And now it's switching up again, and I'm more like, well, you can call me a guy, you can call me he, him pronouns, but I prefer they, them. But I don't mind either one of those ways. Just don't call me a girl, because that's really not what I am, and it's really hard to explain for someone who may not have ever experienced what is like to have gender dysphoria, or what is like to not feel the way you're supposed to be. It's hard to explain, and I'll try my best to describe what my experience with gender is like. There are people out there who do not believe in non-binary genders, which I completely understand. When I first heard of it, I did not believe in it either. I thought it was just something that cis females came up with to feel special. And now I completely disagree with that. But there will be people out there who still call me a cis female and assume that I'm doing this for attention or whatever, but it's really, I don't know how else to say that it's not the case, because it's, I don't know, because I experience extreme bouts of what can only be described as gender dysphoria. It's not confusion, it's not weird, I'm mentally ill shit, because I used to think that, you know, being trans would automatically mean that you're mentally ill, when in reality it doesn't. It's not a mental illness. I don't believe that is anymore. I thought it was because that's how I was able to describe it to people. I would say, oh, I had this mental illness. That makes me believe that I'm a different gender, when in reality I am just a different gender, and it's not a mental illness. It's just something, because being trans is so common, it's something that the patriarchy kind of shaped out of it. It's a direct result of having very strict binary ideas of gender, and having gender as an idea in general. I think, you know, when it comes to introducing yourself, you should introduce yourself with your name and your pronouns. And a lot of people think that's a very leftist idea, and an idea that wouldn't work out very well, when I think it would be a great idea, personally. Especially when you don't want to misgender someone. Just telling them your pronouns, that would ensure that misgendering does not take place. but for some reason, this different view on gender, which I personally have experienced, and which thousands of people have personally experienced, for some reason, this somehow makes me a special snowflake. Because I'm weird and and I don't identify as usual. I just really want to talk about my gender because being non-binary is an interesting experience. I was against the idea of being non-binary for a little while because I found that it was not something that anyone would ever recognize me as. Now that I confuse the hell out of people because I like to wear makeup and dress like this, or I'll dress very feminine and not be wearing makeup and have a mustache and stuff like that. I always like to fill in my mustache, of course. I'm starting back on testosterone, and there's going to be a full thing of facial hair, I'm telling you. Gender is just really weird, and I don't get why the way thousands of people identify is for some reason up to debate. I know I'm like hopping in between subjects right now. I'm telling you it's my ADHD, but I really felt like I needed to just get my thoughts out there real quick. And if anyone in my family is watching this, I'd like you to understand that this is not something I chose. This is something that is a direct result of having a strict binary structure for gender. Non-binary people have been around for the entire existence of human nature. You know, humans should never have made a difference between males and females. She gonna answer it. She answered it. She didn't answer it. She answered it. Okay. There should not have started off with a difference between males and females, because that is what led to the development of gendered objects and gendered things, and led to people being ashamed of who they love and what things they love. I don't think it should matter in any way what toys little kids play with, but that's like a completely different subject because we're talking about non-binary. All right, I'm non-binary, and I'm proud enough to be non-binary. I told myself earlier in my transition that I wouldn't start identifying as non-binary because I would be seen as a special snowflake, because I would be seen as someone who is faking it, because I was afraid of that. I was afraid of people telling me that I would regret transitioning because I knew that I wouldn't. And who's to say what I'm going to feel later on in life, because like I said, gender is fluid. It's forever changing, and although I might not regret transitioning right now, I could regret it later down the road. Who's to say? Because technically you're not the same person as you were 5 years ago. It's just the truth of the matter. You're always going to be ever changing into a different person. Your cells completely rearrange themselves into a completely different being within 7 years. So when that falls into the paradox. That falls into the paradox. When you have an old ship, you start replacing parts of the old ship. At what point does that old ship become no longer itself? Like, you can call it itself, but it doesn't have any aspect of the ship that it used to be. And that might have come off a little confusing because I don't have the correct paraphrasing for that. That is the best way I can explain it. When you get older, your cells in your body completely change. Years down the road, you are not going to be the same person. You're not even going to look the same. If you look at a picture of me from 7 years ago, you wouldn't be able to recognize me. Maybe the face shape. And I think that's the only thing that's like similar between me and my past self is the genetics behind it. You know, I have these genes that are determining what I'm gonna look like later on in life and stuff like that. But that could be forever changing because we now have the ability to completely change your hormones around and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm trying to make it sound more like it does in my head. I really am. Because in my head, I hate to sound cocky. In my head, I'm this intelligent being who's trying to communicate what it's like to experience gender in a different way than most binary people. And I like to say that if people were not so insecure about things that they like or people that they like or the way they were raised in a certain society, I'd like to say that there would be more non-conforming or non-binary people out there who would be able to be open with themselves. I've known I was weird since I was a kid, and I've known that I was different since I was a kid. And, you know, most trans people who have the exact same experience, and a lot of non-binary people who I relate to have a very, very similar experience when it comes to childhood and experiencing gender in a certain way. So you can't tell me that this isn't a real thing when thousands of people experience it the exact same way. There are people out there who do directly regret transitioning. And I feel for those people. There are people out there who give themselves dysphoria and regret it. But that all comes down to figuring out your gender. Most of the time when people transition, I'm not saying all the time, but a lot of the time when people transition and they end up regretting the transition, it turns out they were actually non-binary and they didn't know how to express their gender and how that felt. A lot of the time it's because they were non-binary. Now, if a cis woman starts to transition and they end up regretting that transition 100% and wish to go live fully as human, usually it's because trauma. Or how they are perceived by other males in society. Sexual trauma, stuff like that. Don't think I haven't done my research. Don't think I haven't gone to plenty of doctors. Don't think I haven't been to psychiatrists and therapists alike, because I have. I know more about the non-binary gender than most people who don't study about it, who don't know things about gender. I know more about that shit than those people do, because I've experienced it firsthand and I've been doing plenty of research about it. I may only be 19, but I can tell your 50-year-old grandmother who knows nothing about the truth of gender what it is like. I can tell you that I exist, and there are thousands and thousands of people like me that exist. You have no right to tell someone that their identity is invalid. No right. And that is when the counter arguments come in, and people are like, what if someone says they identify as a chair? Well, I will ask that person their pronouns, and I will respect those pronouns. I used to be against things such as neo-pronouns, but now I think I've come to a better understanding that people who use neo-pronouns can't find comfortableness in any of the three-person pronouns that we have now. You know, he, him, she, her, they, them. These people cannot find comfortableness in them, and I respect that. And though I have not met anyone with neo-pronouns, and I think it might take me a little bit of time to get used to it, because I'm not used to referring someone to someone with neo-pronouns. For those of you who don't know, neo-pronouns are any pronouns that is not she, her, he, him, or they, them. Neo-pronouns such as ze, them is one I've seen pretty commonly. chacher, I think is one I've seen. And I just think that's going to be like a natural thing that's working to the English language eventually. Eventually, the old structure of binary gender will be broken down. Hopefully. That's all I can ask for when it comes to success and stuff like that. I hope and pray that the structured binary is actually broken down by the end of this century at the very least, and people will start to understand that gender is more than just what you were born with, who you were born as. I didn't ask to be this quirky. I didn't ask to be this different, and it sucks to be different a lot of the time. I'm not doing this just to be different because I have gotten relentlessly bullied because of it. I'm different because I identify different. I feel different. I have extreme bouts of gender dysphoria that make me feel extremely different. And nothing anyone can say will invalidate that in my own mind. I will transition as far as I wish to transition. I will identify however I wish to identify. And I don't care what you say about it. I'm trying to educate. So if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. I know it kind of went on a ranty rampage kind of a thing, but gender really is just a social construct, and that's something that you need to remember. I know that's a very leftist thing to say, like I said before, but I've never felt so sure of anything in my life. I've never felt so 100% sure that gender just really isn't a thing. It's just a thing that we've all kind of come up with. The whole reason, sex dysphoria pretty much exists is because we made gender exist. We made roles in gender exist. The whole reason I am transitioning is to make me feel more comfortable in my identity and how I shall present myself and how it makes it easier to present myself. I have extreme dysphoria. And there's a limited way I can fix that. And it's because of the gender that was assigned to me at birth. Alright, we're good. I'm gonna get back to work, even though I have nothing to do. I'm gonna get back to watching videos about non-binary people because it's something I like to study about a lot. Also, I'm growing out my hair. It's really messy right now. But I'm just trying to express my way in any way I know how, because I am not binary, and that's okay. I'm here to help anyone out who is also having weird questions about their gender or sexuality. Identify how you want. Basically, that's 1, 2, 3. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to identify a certain way. Don't let anyone try to change your mind about that. I believe you. And you're valid. No matter how you identify, no matter if you transition or not, no matter who you are, no matter how you dress. There's no such thing as gender itself. It exists only in the human mind. Alright. Bye, guys.